You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Revenge After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Revenge After Show.
Hey everybody, Bing is for doing, and we are here doing another AFTERBUZZ TV After Show for Revenge. This is Season 3, Episode 3, Confession. I'm your host for the evening, Anna Koppel, and I am here with Phil.
Hello. I am here. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Roxy is not here.
Catherine's not here.
Catherine's still in Australia, believe it or not, but she will be here, and Roxy will be here next time, and we're excited. This was an amazing episode.
It was so good. It was so good, and I feel like a horrible person for not liking the first episode and not having faith in Revenge. So anyway, let's just start at the end with Conrad's car wreck. Was that?
Yeah. Well, I liked, they had the immediate goal of, all right, get Conrad to confess. Get Conrad.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the thing. Obviously, he's going to do it, and Emily needs him to do it. But in terms of his morality, as Victoria says to him, if you're just trying to save your soul before you pass on, but no, you've already sold your soul, or whatever she says. In that sense, do you think she's correct?
Well, yes and no. She says that she's going to have to shoulder the burden after he's died, because obviously, he's not going to go to prison. He'll probably die before he goes to prison, assuming that he actually does have this disease, which would leave Victoria, yes, to shoulder the burden. The other thing is that she wanted to confess everything to clear David Clark's name in the day when she was dating and in love with him. So,
or the plane crash. Remember, she brings that up, and that's a good little bit of nugget to bring up. Of like, okay, you had a plane crash to prevent me from telling this, and now you feel some guilt.
Right. So, she's obviously I feel like Victoria's really losing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Losing it.
In losing it in what sense, though? I mean, we'll talk about her and Aiden in more depth, but there's so many things being brought to her attention that she wasn't aware of, and so now she's trying to figure it out, and now Conrad is just throwing her, his whole thing, he's always been the pillar of the family, and is always kind of, how many people has he axed off when Victoria wasn't willing to go there, and now he's like, all right, you know what, I need to atone for this.
Well, so she's dealing with that. She's dealing with being bankrupt. She's dealing with Emily announcing to an entire party that she's bankrupt. She does
terrible.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot about that. But Patrick moving in, even though that's a great thing for her, it's still like it's a big life change. Charlotte wants nothing to do with her. She's dealing with a lot. But I just feel like her running after throwing like this giant vase at Conrad down the stairs and slapping him, and she's like running outside with her shoes off. I'm like, this is what a crazy woman does.
You know what's interesting? I thought she would actually hit him, and that would prevent anything from happening. But more importantly, the fact that he did get away, and then we have I'm still trying to comprehend the final moments of we see a body, the burn, and then he comes into the light, and I'm trying to figure out, was that Conrad or was that Victoria's doing? Has Victoria gone the full dark side?
Yes, and I had the same thought because she said, if you get in that car, so help me, it's the last thing you'll do.
Yes.
So I definitely had that question. But I also thought, because, Emily's been switching out his medication. So could it have been that he just lost control, like fell asleep, whatever it was? Is that a possibility?
No, it's a possibility in normal realm, But in the revenge world, well, it has to be motivated. You know what I mean? And so it's either Conrad realizing that, you know what, I'm not going to confess and I'm just going to kill Paul, or if it's Victoria setting something up and Conrad got away, but it certainly wasn't part of Emily's plan.
Right. And how do we feel about Father Paul at this point? Do you feel like he had cleared his soul enough before dying in this horrible car wreck?
I don't think that he did, but it's interesting, as he's having the talk, he says in the church he's having the talk, and right before he goes into confession with Emily, he says, "It wasn't me. I've been framed," and he's told that, you know what, someone wanted you to have this, so what caused this? And for that answer, you got to look internally, and so he felt that pain, and so I think ultimately the fact that Emily forgave him, I forgive him too.
Right. And he's one more person who is encouraging Emily to forgive, to move on, to, somehow find closure with this. And I don't remember exactly what he said. He said something like, before you lose yourself. Do you remember when they were on the phone?
Oh, sorry, which scene are you talking about?
This is after Father Paul and Conrad spoke, and Emily called him and, asked if everything went according to plan.
Yes.
And he said, "We'll put it this way, if he doesn't confess, I will." But then he also encourages Emily to forgive, and he said something like, before you lose yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not the first time we've heard that for Emily.
Right, and so I think that's interesting that we keep hearing this, like, once an episode.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to be a turn in her character, but it seems like it might be.
Well, it's interesting, now, depending on where it's going to go, the fact that, not to get too much into Emily, but her life, everything's kind of coming back into control, and we found out the big Aiden reveal, but also that spiraled out of control because now she has to deal with Daniel, as she says.
Right.
And now, she's kind of having to deal with Victoria, Jack, and all these different things. So it is interesting how she wanted to get her footing right, but now it's still spiraling out of control in that way.
Yeah. The other thing about Conrad is, I was a little disappointed because we've been looking forward to seeing Charlotte stab him. Yeah. But the dramatic irony was not lost on me, that because Charlotte says, "This is for my father," and he wakes up kind of gasping, and Emily's right there like, "Morning, Conrad. Here's pastries."
Yes, that was very funny. And it was slightly cheap that it was just a dream, obviously, but it is still revealing of Conrad's fears.
Right.
And as he said, Emily was great.
Yes, in revealing his fears, what he said to Father Paul was, that Charlotte had come in to confront him. This was last week's episode, but he was talking about that moment, and he said, "Paul, I saw myself becoming my true monstrous self through her eyes. I mean, I welcome death now." And I just felt like that was such an honest moment, and I had a lot of compassion for him in that moment. But it also makes me think, what?
I said, wow.
That I have compassion for him, or that...
Well, you have compassion for many people, you just don't always realize it. But the fact that Conrad,
right.
This is a monster. And just one flip of a switch, and it's like, ooh, you know what, he ain't so bad.
Yeah, it's true. So the fact that he says that he welcomes death now makes me think he may have crashed the car on purpose.
That's an interesting point.
So I don't know. I'm sure we'll learn more about it, but it's also a little bit sketchy. How is Emily going to explain why she's there when that happens?
That's going to be a good point. Yeah, well, let's save that for predictions. I'll say
okay. That's fair. That's fair enough. Do you have anything else to say on this?
About Conrad? I mean, just to bring up a great scene, it was, again, him and Victoria, and he's looking out at the sunset with the ocean. And I thought that was great beginning to that whole scene between them.
Yes.
You know, where he says, you know what, I'm burning the past, and now, you know, I feel like kind of a new man, so to speak.
And it's interesting because we always see Victoria standing there.
Yeah.
That's like her spot. I don't know. It's just interesting to see him there. So Victoria, speaking of Victoria, so Aiden has confronted Victoria, or confronted is the wrong word, has come to Victoria with this information. And obviously by the end of the episode, we learned that he, in fact, has been working with Emily, which is great. He still loves her, I guess. Roxy would say it's because he loves her so much.
It's true, and I liked how they kind of played it, but I like how it's a bonus and a negative because of what happens with Daniel, and the fact that even though that Emily knew what was happening, she let the best of her kind of go when she made the announcement that Victoria's poor, and that wasn't part of the plan either.
How do you know?
How do I know? Because Aiden says, you know, why would you? Because the whole plan, as is explained, is just a portfolio and saying, hey, you know what, Emily stole your money, and no, it actually wasn't. You know, here's the truth, and so that was the only plan was that.
I don't know, because I think humiliating her. See, this is Victoria is very used to being like the queen of the Hamptons, and so the fact she was like almost offended that she got an invitation to Nolan's party, that it wasn't just assumed that she would be there.
Going.
Yeah. So I think to humiliate her on that level, and then it ends up in page 6 that they're bankrupt. You know, it's that's a big deal for Victoria.
It's true. Okay, I can buy that. Although, yeah, I don't know. I'm half torn because of the way the beach scene went. It makes sense the way you're explaining it, but in the way that I acted it threw me off.
Yeah. Well, and right, what was not part of the plan was Aiden mentioning that they were still together when she was with Daniel. So I think that's what got her so emotional. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? So, yeah, who knows?
Let me ask you this. You know, let's debate this. This
Okay,
will be
go.
fun. Okay, Aiden mentioning Dan. Was that really part of his plan because it was the best plan, or was that part of his plan because it's what's best for Aiden and his relationship with Emily? You get the difference?
I definitely get the difference, and I definitely think that he mentioned it because it's part of Aiden's plan. And I also, P.S.
Those are my initials.
That's true.
Yes.
Should I start calling you that?
No, you can if you want.
Okay. It's ridiculous. Whoever wrote the trailer for next week's episode, like, really labeled who each person was. Like, her fiance this and her ex that, but her true love this. And it's kind of forcing us to accept that these are the rules.
At least for next week.
At least for next week. At least one more week. But yes, to answer your question, I definitely think that that's Aiden's plan. It hurts to see somebody that you love be with somebody else, right?
Even though you know it's part of a greater plan.
Does that mean you enjoy, like, seeing them, you know?
Intercourse?
Right. Just seeing, I'm sure he watches intercourse. Just,
It wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't shock me either. But yeah, and especially because Aiden has come to this place where he's like, look, you're not going to feel better about this. This isn't going to bring your father back. So he has, like, tried to convince her to drop everything. So he thinks it's not good for her to be there in the first place. And she's still intercoursing with Daniel. So.
That she is. Well, it's interesting, you know, Aiden and Dan had a secret of their own that Emily didn't know about, which I thought was a nice little nugget of information because, you know, obviously it causes a rift in the relationship between Emily and Dan, but then also more so with Aiden and Emily.
Yeah, you know, and I really like this, Daniel, because my note, after Victoria spoke with Daniel and said, yeah, she went to see him at the office and he was like, this is ridiculous, whatever. But then Daniel goes to confront Emily and say, like, you know, what's the deal here? Why did you buy Nolan's house? And, you know, are you still seeing Aiden and whatever? And then she explained things and he was like, okay, like we both know that it's my mom's, she wants to break us apart, but just like don't give her the ammunition. And so I had a note like, is he too trusting? But I like that he's not. He's, you know, installing alarm systems and, you know, making threats, and I like it. I like that he's manning up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's been lied to so many times, and, you know, he's always got to check things out. But it's interesting to see the behaviors of Dan and Victoria because they both go down these trails just because someone mentions it. Obviously, Aiden is the setup for Victoria, but then Victoria is the setup for Dan, and, you know, they're going to follow this. It'd be like you telling me, like, I can't think of an example. I was going to think, let's see. It'd be like you telling me that Roxy, in her off time,
does another podcast for revenge.
Sure. or just does things behind AfterBuzz's back and says AfterBuzz is no good. Or I don't know. Something stupid, right?
Right.
And then it may not be true, but I'm now immediately going to go and follow that trail, even though it's a stupid trail.
Right.
You know?
I think it's fair to check things out if you hear something horrible about somebody you're close to. I think it's fair to, but in the Hamptons, apparently it gets super accusatory super fast. So
it doesn't, and especially because, okay, you've built, granted, the relationship is false. We know this, but he believes that it's true. So we're talking about,
right.
I mean, we're talking about this thing that's about to fall. You know, it's a house built on cards. But Dan, who believes in his mind that this is a solid foundation, that they've built this on true love, and, you know, despite everything that they've gone through, their love is held. And then at the smallest break in the armor, or at the slightest notion of anything, he's willing to forego that and say, you know what, I got to start questioning things here. As opposed to their entire history together.
Right. There have been a lot of questions.
So, just saying.
Yeah. So, and I guess Aiden now is going to be moving in to the manor.
Him and Patrick, they could be roommates.
He and Patty Cake, yeah, it's going to be awesome.
So,
I'm excited to see where that goes. So, really quickly before we move on from this, when Emily and Aiden were talking on the beach, right before he approached her, she was looking at the ocean, mapping something out. Do you know what that was?
I saw an L in red. Yeah, I have no idea, you know. We'll see. I mean, could it be perhaps that's where the boat... You know what? Actually, could it be that she's planning the wedding for the beach? Remember Amanda had a wedding there, and that could just be because Jack always remembered that Amanda wanted to have a wedding on the beach, so he forced that on her. But now, because Emily is really Amanda, she does want a wedding on the beach.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
That might make sense.
It might make sense. Yeah,
or I could be completely off.
Well, I mean, yeah, and they like just kind of drop these little breadcrumbs for us to follow, and then throw us off completely. I really wish that Charlotte had actually stabbed Conrad. But
then it would have obviously not gone forward with the plan. You know, the confession is what Emily needs, and that's what we need to kind of root for. As far as Aiden and Victoria, I'm liking where it's gonna go.
Yeah, I like that he was like, "Oh, whoops, bad information. Sorry." Like goes to get up, and she like, grabs Stan. She's like, "You're not going anywhere." Yeah. We both know that she's a bad seed. Yeah. So Nolan threw the party of the century.
I like, you know, most of the parties that are thrown are always by the Graysons.
Yeah.
So for the first time ever, Nolan's having his own party, and it's $2 million.
And it's exclusive. It's very exclusive.
100 people only.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Are we to understand that Patrick's gay? Because it seemed like they were a little flirty.
That's you know what's I don't know. Let me ask you this, because it's so tough. It's so tough. But short answer, yes. I believe at the very least he's 3 on the Kenzie scale like Nolan is. But it's interesting. You know, if he is, then he's certainly gonna try to do something for the sake of Victoria to try to get to Nolan.
I was really turned off by when Emily came by. They were having breakfast, and Emily came by to see Conrad, but dropped off the invitation. And he said, "We've met one too many times." Like, who are you? You just showed up. You don't like start this. You know, is going to be your sister-in-law. Maybe is that how that works? I don't know, but it was so rude.
It was, but that was the point of it.
I understand, but I feel like in the Hamptons, we're sort of used to people giving backhanded compliments, and it's just more.
But he doesn't come from that culture, you know. He's getting acclimated to it, and that's why, you know, if it was Victoria, she would say, you know, so lovely to see you. It's not, you know, I'm so glad we're meeting again.
Yeah, so lovely of you to drop in again. One of those.
Emphasis on again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We've met one too many times. Very rude, Patrick, very rude. But so he scores an invitation to Nolan's party of the century, and then comes later and accuses Nolan of something else.
Well, I liked it because it, you know, it puts both men at odds, and I like when Nolan has sort of his adversaries because, you know, because we're the audience didn't know that it was Grayson, and it slipped, you know, and then obviously Patrick later on thinks that Nolan invited him because he is a Grayson because of what Victoria says, and that part of it I love, and it gives Nolan that immediate goal of like, okay, this is my guy, this is who I got to take out,
right,
for whatever reason.
Right. But it seems like Patrick's super paranoid then.
Okay, here's what I'm, you know, in the first podcast we did, episode 1 of season 3, in News and Gossip, we had all mentioned that, you know, Patrick is the good guy. He has no ulterior motives, but then, as you point out, he's saying lines like, "We've already met," to, you know.
Yeah.
And because no one is pure in this world, I cannot believe him. And so, you know, that must be the toughest thing to write if he is a pure character, because, you know, he's such in a world of non-pure. I don't know how to gauge him, and it's throwing me off.
Right. Well, I can't remember exactly what it was that he accused Nolan. I know he accused him of thinking. He accused Nolan of already knowing who he was when he sat down. That was the first thing, and then it was something from like the week before that he and Emily tried to take him out. Or I don't know, but it was he. You know, if anybody's listening and wants to tweet or call in with the other thing, it just makes him sound really paranoid, I think.
And not a good guy at all, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it could be that, you know, I don't know if this was the intent, but within the first three episodes, he's gone from pure, and because of, you know, Charlotte mentions it before, hey, if you're going to be a Conrad, or if you're going to be a Grayson.
You do that every time.
Because he used to be the pinnacle of the whole family,
I know.
and the face for evil.
I get it.
But because he's been so exposed to the Graysons, you know, he's matriculated their traits, and now he is paranoid like they would normally be, because that's what they are.
Right. Well, yeah, when you're always doing bad criminal activity, then you learn to sort of look over your shoulder, and
well, you have to.
You have to, absolutely.
So
Jack shows up at this party with Margo.
Great party, by the way.
Really? Did you think it was great?
I don't know. Well, is this what $2 million really gets you?
I mean, he probably spent a good $100,000. Maybe that's overstating it, but he had a ridiculous suit on. It was ridiculous. What was the deal with those pants? Those pleated pants, and I don't know. It was awful.
But I do like. I loved how Margo back at the bar as soon as Tyler says, "Hey, this is Jack. He's Nolan's best friend," and on best friend, it just the eyes lit up by Margo.
Right. Right. So we think Margo is a bit of a manipulator as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. But Jack was like rubbing Margo and Emily's face during the party. I think.
I think so too, because here's an honest rich girl.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Now, as like, because Emily is rich, but she's dishonest and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, poor Jack. But I want to focus more on Margo, because I'm still, in terms of this, I love what they're kind of doing and where they're going. But I don't quite understand her in the sense that, her and Daniel have the tiff and she wants to get Nolan. I want to know how it's fully going to play into this circle, this web of, revenge, and what her motive is.
Yeah, why does she want him to be the cover story so badly? And, I mean, I understand why Daniel does not, but I don't understand what her interest is in him.
Because it's an exclusive story, that Nolan, and especially because we obviously as an audience know this, he is a bit of a quote changed man, Nolan 2.0. But I think there's something up where he, again, it could reveal a certain truth, and it's going to hinder or help certain parties, and I think it's what it's going to do. Ultimately, if it's great, and I believe that it is, that it's going to simultaneously help and hurt the Graysons, and also simultaneously help, but also hurt Emily. Just like what Aiden did with Victoria, where it helped the cause, but also hurt it because of Dan.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but I feel that Daniel should really be trusting Margo in this situation, regardless of what happened with Noel Corp. That she's been running this magazine. She knows what to do. So I just feel like he should go with it. Why not? It's gonna make him money, and that's all he's really interested in, right?
Yes, but it's interesting because, in doing this, it's not quite poetry, but it's something closer to poetry and more honest. And now that, I think he's ultimately disliking the fact that by writing about Noel Corp, it is taking him back to the days of Grayson, and also he has to rethink of him being, running it and things like, or Grayson Global and him running it and things like that. And he's genuine in the sense that he wants to finally put it in the past.
All right.
But he cannot move on.
But he can, yeah. Well, he can't ever really put it in the past because Emily is friends with Nolan. So if they're going to get married, which he thinks they are.
But not to the point, he never thought they were the friends to the point that, she would buy a house for him and all these different things.
Right. Yeah, he was not thrilled when Nolan showed up and said, "I thought you were going to be at work." What did he say? He wears his shame well. Something like that. He had his crabby pants on for that. I don't blame him.
This is total side point about what we're talking about, but I thought it was one of the greatest lines in the whole episode. Hey Daniel, what are you doing? I'm working, which is what poor people do. I thought that was a great line.
Yeah, that's great.
That is what poor people do.
Yeah, it's true. Oh. Yeah. Let's get into Daniel and Emily.
Okay.
Okay.
What would you like to talk about?
Let's get deep into Daniel and Emily. I feel like Margo is going to play into this a little bit, and maybe I should have saved this for predictions, but I feel like obviously Daniel's very threatened by Aiden in his presence in the Hamptons again. And okay, I've been really suffering with like a short-term memory problem, but did we see him shoot Aiden?
This is where, here's the problem. I don't remember.
I know. I don't
remember.
either.
It's so much happens in every single episode. And, going from May to September, and, I mean, granted, this is no excuse, but literally between May and September, I've seen like 20 different TV shows just during the summer alone. So
No, I know. I know, me too.
This is where, honest to God, this is where all of you fans are so amazing at catching these tiny little details and being able to remember that. And I know that's, I'm gonna get hit back. Hey, that's your job as commentators. And while it is, it's also it's also difficult alone to talk about the episode and remember everything that
Happened
and
tonight.
then go into it trying to come to conclusions just about that, and then on the fly being able to connect dots to episodes that sometimes may have happened in season 1, episode 2.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly, Phil. We really do encourage and appreciate the fans to tweet us and call in and comment and rate, and we're really trying to create a community here where everybody can interact with each other. I want to say though that we did not see him shoot Aiden because it was news to Emily.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go ahead and say we did not see it because I would have remembered it. But it's always details like that you think, oh, should I have remembered that?
Right.
It would have been too major plot point to perhaps. I mean, we certainly know that they didn't like each other. And it's not outside the realm. So.
Right. Well.
But here's the thing: had that happened, again, Daniel's mind just baffles me in terms of he's strong and yet he's also still childlike despite his growing maturity. It is something that I would have believed that he would have said, or he would have set up measures, against that, so that way he wouldn't have to tell Emily. You know what I mean? He would have set up these alarm systems right then and there because he knew that he would have to, he just wanted to keep tabs, so to speak.
Right. Well, and what do you think about Daniel setting up an alarm system in Emily's house?
I think it serves multiple purposes. He doesn't trust Aiden, but he certainly is trying to get to the bottom of Emily. And by setting this up, it's like it's telling her like, hey, I'm keeping tabs on you.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's really overstepping a boundary to do that to somebody's house.
It's going to be his house too.
Yeah, but it's not yet.
Okay.
So she's free to make out with Aiden until then. No, I don't believe that at all. But I do think it is overstepping a boundary to install anything on somebody else's house. Like, hey, surprise, I changed all the cabinets in your kitchen. Why'd you do that? I don't know.
Well, that's where it becomes, for Emily, to me, that's, honest to God, one of the most interesting aspects of it. You're living with the enemy. And so, you know what I mean? I'd love to, if I was in Emily's shoes, I'd love to, put out a blueprint of how we're going to pull off this mission right here today. But where do I hide it? Because, it could be found in the most stupidest of ways of hey, I was vacuuming and I found this revenge map.
Right.
What does it mean where it says kill Daniel? And then, but before that says marry him?
Well, but she moved her infinity box to
Nolan.
Right. But she didn't move her already loaded gun, I guess.
Which, by the way, I think, part of the reason why she did buy the house was for herself.
Oh, yeah.
It is a escape, outlet. It is an outlet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Dexter kept his apartment when he got married. You need
Totally
a hiding
don't get
place.
the reference.
You don't get the reference?
I do, but I don't watch Dexter.
Oh, okay. Well, Dexter was a serial killer, and he kept his blood slides, which were his trophies, in his apartment.
Speaking of serial killers real fast, I do want to mention Adventures of Serial Buddies. It's about 2 serial killers going on a road trip of a lifetime. I know that sounds strange, and yes, it is a comedy. It's narrated by Henry Winkler, starring Christopher McDonald, Artie Lang, Beth Bears, Kathy Lee Gifford, Christopher McDonald, Christopher Lloyd, in case I didn't mention him. It's outrageously funny. It's out now on DVD. I know I've gotten so many emails to AfterBuzz TV saying, hey, I'd love to get it, but I want a DVD copy. It is now available on DVD, so make sure you go buy that. You'll enjoy it. Many have.
And tell a friend.
And tell a friend.
Yeah. Okay, Phil. you know, I think I'm spent here.
You think you're spent?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk. I'd like to talk a little bit about Charlotte.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
You know,
that's a good idea.
Okay. Now you're back.
Now I'm back. I'm back in. What do you want to say about Charlotte?
I want to say this. You know, it's interesting how Emily's kind of realizing that, you know what, tell her the truth.
Yeah.
And that she's not worth hurting. And in her own way, even though she doesn't outright say it, she's apologizing to Jack for what happened with Amanda, for what happened with Declan. I almost forgot his name. Declan hasn't been back in so long.
I actually have a note. And see, this is why I was so frustrated with episode 1, because I feel like they just had like one line about these characters and just like brushed over it, just stepped over it. And I was like, what? We can't do that. So I really like that Declan was mentioned in this episode. He was mentioned last episode. So I like that we're like continuing to talk about him. You know, Jack lost a brother, Charlotte lost a lover, and their baby. So it needs to be continued to talk about. But yeah, in that moment when Emily was thanking Jack for telling Charlotte the truth, I feel like Jack really was softening towards her.
Yeah.
And that's when Margo came in. But do you think?
I think so, and I what I like about it is that Jack is sort of recognizing that, but in his own weird way, he's picking up on that, and he's also going to push her further to end this because he knows he has. I believe he knows he has that power over her, and it's what's best, you know, and just to resolve everything. No more lives need to be hurt or whatever over this,
Right.
and there is a way to end this and to end it amicably, at least for Jack.
Right.
Which is, you know, for him, it's just to walk away or, you know, do whatever.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that might be the best thing for Jack, and I think Jack could do that.
Yeah.
But I hope he sticks around because
Do we like him and Margo? If that were to develop in any way.
I hate Margo and anybody,
Okay, yeah.
but particularly with
Is
Jack.
it the short hair or what?
No, I think it's fancy.
You think that's sexy?
I do think it's sexy. I think she wears it well. I think she's beautiful. I don't like her character.
We just don't know her yet. And we the more important part, we don't know whose side she's on.
Well, we do know that she gets naked in front of somebody who's engaged, and she's already met his fiance. We know that.
But then she does go for a good rebound, which is Jack, and she's like, hey, you want to go swimming? I don't got a bathing suit. Who cares? Let's go swimming.
But that was a manipulation on her part because she wanted to get to Nolan, and Daniel had already said, I'm going to deal with that. So she is using Jack to get to Nolan, and then she got flirty with him.
It's a little fun along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I just don't like her. I just don't trust her, and I don't like her. So, and if she hurts Jack, it's like, you know, Jack has suffered enough. It's enough.
Yeah, Jack doesn't need more.
Yeah, I feel like his time is coming. I feel so sad. It's like gut wrenching that Charlotte hates Emily right now.
Well, is it gut wrenching because you feel bad for Charlotte or you feel bad for Emily?
Both of them. You know, Emily can't tell her the truth. Charlotte at some point had this, you know, the two of them had this wonderful relationship, and Charlotte felt like she could really trust her and go to her. And yes, she has Jack at this point, but Jack's a disaster. You know, like, she's trying to save him. You know, who's saving Charlotte right now? She miscarried their baby. Declan just died. Who's taking care of her? Nobody. So it's a shame that she doesn't.
Her French accent is terrible too. I mean, so many things bad.
Yeah, I mean, her time in France didn't improve her accent. So it would just be good for her if she could have that relationship with Emily, so she could have somebody to vent to. I don't know.
And to be truthful with, and I think, you know, that's the interesting part to me about this whole season is the fact that so many more people kind of know what's going on. I mean, the fact that Paul knows, you know, he's a huge link to Conrad.
Right.
And that's a huge risk, you know, and especially if you know, you didn't quite know. if he was going to go through with it or not. You know what I mean? Unless if he said no, then I guess the only option is to shoot him right then and there in the confessional, which in itself is a huge sin.
Right.
But it's interesting to me. I like that we're kind of expanding this this plot.
Yeah. In real life, I think Emily would be like the worst spy, worst assassin ever.
We should do. I mean, this after show nor the show on Lens 4. It's kind of comedy in that way. But if we just did like CIA training or something like that, did a stupid video,
Yeah.
that would be fun. Anyway,
Yeah.
completely not going to happen.
Maybe in the off season, you know, how they like to take their breaks. So
Yes, they do.
yeah.
News and gossip.
Sure.
AfterBuzz TV News.
I only had one thing, and I don't have it in front of me, but just ratings really dropped, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
They dropped to around 6 million. I believe is what it is.
I thought it was 4.
They dropped 17% from season 1
Oh, look
or
at you.
from episode 1 to episode 2.
Yeah, and I could see why, because I have not made a secret that I was not a fan of episode 1, but I hope that their audience comes back because I feel like they've really stepped it up.
You know, it's ratings to me are so interesting in the sense that if I start a show, I would never just kind of not watch a show out. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so it's always weird to me, but it's obviously so very truthful. But if you're a fan of Revenge and you know, obviously for those of you listening, you're still watching the show.
Right.
It would be strange if you weren't. But tell the people that may have tuned out that it is still a good show and that it is, you know, it has a lot of potential, you know, and there was a byproduct of, as we discussed in episode 1 and episode 2, it's a whole new showrunner. So we had to find our footing, and so I believe we are. And had they made it a 2-hour premiere, I think we
Yes.
would have been okay.
Yes, I agree with that. I love how you are also saying we as though we are in any way attached to ABC or Revenge officially.
Well, we, you know.
Someday, Phil. Someday.
Hey, we are working on more guests, by the way. So, you know, and obviously for those of you who love the show, check out last season's finale where we had Nick Wexler in studio, you know, and we're working on getting Nick back. He's a great guy.
He tweeted something really funny.
Wait, hold on. That's news in itself. Nick does. For those of you who actually listen, who I imagine most of you did, but that listened to the episode, Nick does not tweet. He's a publicist nightmare, as he calls himself. And so the fact that he tweeted is news in itself.
Let me
What did
see
he
if
tweet?
let me see if I can find it.
All right. In the meantime, I'll keep talking.
Okay, keep talking.
You know, in terms of the ratings. I
Okay, I
mean,
found it.
well, let me just finish this
Okay.
thought and I'll get. It would be a huge shame to not see the show in its completion the way they intended. So if for example the ratings are eventually lead to the cancellation of this, I hope that it's done in such a way where the network says, hey, okay, you know what? It's not going right. We'll give you 6 or 13 more, but you got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And I think, could it be done? It's a tall task, but I think it could. And that's if the silver line to me is that. But for me, I hope that the show does continue. And so fans, really, let's rally.
Let's rally. Let's rally the fans. So Nick Wexler, and by the way, if you would like to follow him, he is at Nick_Wexler, WECHSLER. And he tweeted, Father, whatever his name is in heaven now, which he should be happy about. Ask revenge. # ask revenge.
That's, is he talking about Father Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, Father Paul.
I just thought it was funny. Father, what's his name? Whatever his name is. Anyway, that's all I have.
That's a good little bit. That's fun.
That's fun. He's
well-
fun.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
predictions.
do it.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
What do we got?
I quickly just want to say, somebody tweeted and I just missed it that Daniel shooting Aiden was strongly implied. He showed up at Conrad's governor party with blood on his sleeve, and I forgot that I actually thought Daniel was
Okay,
shot.
strongly implied, yes.
Yeah, strongly implied. But I actually thought Daniel was shot, but he shot Aiden. But good call, Mark McDonald. Thank you very much for tweeting in and
staying up this late.
And staying up this late. Yeah.
Predictions.
I predict that Margo and Jack will become a thing, but I also think that Daniel and Margo are going to have a side thing. And the reason will be for Daniel is kind of like he doesn't really trust her, and it's like retribution.
Well, let me ask you this. In terms of if Margo and Jack get together, is there going to be a way? Would Emily manipulate this relationship in any sort of way? Because Jack does say, like, hey, do you just manipulate everybody you love?
I think she would manipulate Margo.
She would manipulate Margo. But again, that's affecting Jack. But the cool part is, if in your theory, which I like, if Margo or if Daniel is going to do something with Margo, then conversely, she's also affecting Daniel. And that to me is fun.
Yeah, that is fun. What do you predict, Phil?
What do I predict? Shoot. I unfortunately did not get to see the preview at the time. So
they just talked about her love affairs.
Which they seem to do a lot.
Yeah.
I'm interested. It was such a cliffhanger with Emily and Conrad. So I hope we get the answer as to what happened within like the first 5 minutes. Like that. I hope that's exactly where we pick up.
Yes.
But it will be interesting. I believe that Victoria is the one to blame. And now it's awesome to me that I think she's going to be pure evil. And I do think Patrick is going to be now kind of sort of her minion.
Yeah.
But I think he is a bit gay, and he's going to go with Nolan. And then Nolan can manipulate his feelings, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Speaking of true loves right there.
They're definitely going to make out with their tongues.
With their tongues.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
They are definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know what else I can predict right now. I think I'd like to see Charlotte know the truth, and I'd love to see sort of. Imagine if Charlotte was on Emily's side and she knew the truth, and she could now start manipulating from within.
Yeah, I would like to see Charlotte help.
That would be really cool.
That would be awesome.
Do you think she'd be very upset? I mean, she must be if she found out.
I think. Yes, but I think that she would also forgive her because she would understand. She was like enraged, shocked, horrified that Conrad had anything to do with her father's death.
Yeah.
The fact that her whole life she thought that Conrad was her real father, that her mother's been lying to her. She, doesn't trust these people. So I think that she would, yes, be upset with Emily, but understand why. Mm-hmm. And maybe team up with her.
Maybe.
But she would want to protect Daniel.
Ooh, that's a nice twist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, thanks, guys, for staying up with us, and I like that. So we'll be here next week, and Roxy will be back, and...
Roxy's getting married!
You
heard it here first!
She's just at a wedding, Phil.
Get married.
You can follow me at Koppel for Mayor, KOPPELFORMAYOR. And Phil, do you want to...
You can follow us here at AfterBuzz TV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. And you can follow Roxy Stryer at Roxy Stryer on Facebook,
and
Twitter, certainly, and Instagram. No, actually, on Instagram, it's Rocks Your World.
Yeah, and she sure does. She sure does. All right, the dog wants to go out, so I guess we have to wrap it up.
See you next week.
Bye.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.